Hello everyone, Status back here again today for another album review, finally. Today I have Anamanaguchi's Endless Fantasy. They're a US based chiptune punk band kind of thing. They kind of go into a little bit more synth pop in this album, so I guess you could call them synth pop as well. And this is the follow up to the EP Power Supply and the debut, which was basically an EP in length, Dawn Metropolis. Both of which I enjoyed. Dawn Metropolis I enjoyed a lot more. I got a lot of enjoyment out of that album. So yeah, this album's quite different in some ways too. It's a lot more pop based, a lot more, as I said, it's a lot more synth pop. There's a lot more emphasis on beat and synths. And because of that, you know, there is a bit of a different sound and a bit of a different pacing, and at first I was a little bit hesitant, but yeah, after a few more listens I got into it. First listen I actually really didn't like it at all, so I'm glad I listened to these multiple times, otherwise this review would be really negative. Now the album overall is 22 tracks in length, just 3 interludes, which, you know, they're only a minute long, so I guess you can't really call them proper tracks, but at the same time, it's still a very long album. I think it's like 76 minutes. For this type of music, it's really surprising, especially considering their two former releases were basically both EP length. So yeah, this was a little bit surprising, and you know, it's a bit of a it's a long listen for the type of music, especially considering this album's not overly dynamic. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just it doesn't change up a lot, and I'll get into that as I go through. The opener, Endless Fantasy, I think it is the longest track on the album. It's quite dynamic for what it is, and thus it doesn't get repetitive or anything. And none of the songs in this album really do, which is good, because I find so many bands these days, just the song length is the only thing that annoys me about it. Like, it just drags out, and oh man, like Daft Punk's new album, I've kind of seen that issue with, for instance, and I'll be reviewing that in the next few days. So yeah, Endless Fantasy, I got really distracted there. Straight off the bat you can see it's a lot more beat focused, and the synths are really present as opposed to what they've done in the past. I don't even know if they've really used many synths in the past. The production overall in this whole album is a lot better than what they've done in the past. And I guess I shouldn't say a lot better, it's just better. And it's a lot clearer, sounds are a little bit more dynamic. This album I guess will probably be one of the more, I did say it's a bit dynamic, but at the same time it is a little bit repetitive. The sounds themselves kind of change up. It was like the Atoms for Peace album. The songs didn't progress, but the sounds change, if that makes sense. The second track, Japan Air, it's pretty upbeat. The Nintendo sounds are a lot less, and by the way I should say that if you've never heard Anamanaguchi before, their main instrument, I guess you could say, is a Nintendo. And they've got a Game Boy as well, but I'll just say Nintendo because of course the same as the sound. They're like this 8-bit electro sound that very video games-esque, well, hence because Nintendo. Overall in this album it is a bit of a less of focus. It does focus a lot more on synths and other instruments. It's not like it's not the primary focus of the music anymore, it's just another instrument. And I think that in a way, well, it's just different. It's not better or worse really. In this song it was kind of used as a lead guitar, so you know, I think it had a bit of like a solo part through it, or like a solo, but it was with the Nintendo, so that was kind of interesting. Ekobo was another, I think that's Echobo, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a lot more upbeat, energetic, you know, not much more to say on that. And I will say that on a couple of these songs that I just didn't really have anything to say, other than they're just, you know, upbeat, energetic, and nice song. Planet, again, it was a little bit less, a little bit more down tempo, just a little bit. It's got the focuses more on that beat, the repetitive beat. Viridian Genesis was a really heavily synth, like the synths are really heavily focused in this song. It kind of had these like sampled vocals in there that were really distorted. I wasn't really a fan of it. Well, they weren't really distorted, they were just in like basically in really shitty quality. And yeah, I wasn't really a fan of them at all. I don't know, they just didn't seem to add anything to me. It was just a bit of a distraction. But they were kind of in really low doses, so it was okay. It was only like short song, it was only like 3 minutes. It was really quite dynamic. John Hughes, another decent track. It's more Nintendo based, or it features that Nintendo sound a lot more, that retro video game sound. It's very catchy. I think it's one of the stronger songs on the album. It's a lot more similar to their older stuff, particularly Power Supply. It's not quite as in your face as Dawn Metropolis was. Prom Night was one of my least favourite songs on the album. It's a lot more pop focused. It's something that you would definitely hear on the radio. It shares like a melody with the vocal melody for one, and actually the lyrics, the "Love Me, Love Me, Love Me," with a pop song that I can't remember because I don't really listen to that much pop. Yeah, I can't quite remember what it is, but it's something from about 10 years ago, and yeah, the vocal melody sounds exactly the same and has the same lyrics, which is a little bit, I don't know. And also the post-chorus, if you can even call it that, just after each chorus, has this electro melody which is really similar to another pop song that I've heard before, but yeah, I don't know the names to either of them. But yeah, the similarities were a little bit too close, but you know, but that's the thing, it's pop music, you know. That kind of pop music is really overdone. It's generic pop music. It's nothing. Yeah, it's very, very generic pop music. Don't get me wrong, it's still a decent pop song. It's just a very generic one. Then there's an interlude. I'm not going to really speak about the 3 interludes. There, you know, there's nothing really much to note about. A lot of these songs there's not really much to note about. Not because they're really bad or anything. It's just because this album is really consistent, and a lot of the songs just, you know, there's nothing much to say over each other. So, Akira, this is another one of my favourite songs on the album. It is catchy as hell. It's got that Nintendo focus on it, but it's still kind of a little bit slower and has a really solid beat. So it's kind of like a down-tempo version of their old stuff, but still featuring those typical chiptune sounds. The melody, particularly from the chiptune, is just, oh, it's incredible. It changes up a little bit throughout the song, but each part is just absolutely amazing. I think overall this was probably my favourite song on the album. SPF 420, that name, I can't get over that name. It's, yeah, just another upbeat song. Meow, this is their lead single. You guys may have heard this already. They did a video clip. It's been out for a couple of months now, I think. It's a good track. It's catchy as hell. It's got these interesting vocals, interesting to say the least. The amount of energy in this track is just absolutely incredible. It's so catchy. It's just, yeah, it's a great track. It's very Anamanaguchi. So yeah, you'll either love this track or absolutely hate it. It's really in your face. Snow Angels was actually one of my least favourite songs on the album. When I say these, I think there's 2 or 3 songs which are my least favourites. The weaker ones, and like, they're not bad, they're just a little bit worse than all the others. And there was nothing specific about it that was bad. It was, you know, the melody was just kind of uninteresting. There was nothing that really shone out. It was just a little bit, you know, lacked in energy a bit, and yeah. In the Basement is like this almost 90s rock tune. This sort of rock tune you hear around like the 90s and 2000s. It almost reminded me a bit of like the Killers or the Strokes, but the guitars being replaced with the chiptune sounds from the Nintendo, which is kind of interesting. But at the same time, it's a new take on something that you've heard before, basically. Then You and Me. This is the 3rd song that I'm not a fan of. It's heavily beat focused, but melody in this yeah, it's quite uninteresting like the other one, and it really drags out as well and doesn't really change that much. And yeah, I just wasn't a fan of this track. It's not terrible though, as I was saying. The bad songs aren't terrible at all. And then basically the last few songs, they're all kind of the same. I don't really have much to say about them. Space Wax America was upbeat, catchy, as was Everything Explodes. Everything Explodes was a really great track, actually. It was another one of probably the strongest one in these last few in the album. Pastel Flags and Bazooku GF. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's something along that lines. You'll know what one I'm talking about if you know what the tracks are. Both decent songs, catchy. You know, that's all I really need to say. And then the last track, I don't really know how to say this. Open parentheses T-T close parentheses B. It's like a emoticon smiley face type thing. I don't really know what it's supposed to be. It's just got like T's for eyes and B's. Maybe it's like a thumbs up. I don't know. That's all I can think about is a B, but whatever. Yeah, it's a good closer. Interesting. Changes it up a bit. It's a lot more synth based if I can remember it. I didn't actually write anything about it. But yeah, all the songs on this album are pretty decent. They're, you know, good catchy songs. A lot of consistently good songs, but nothing overly great. There were the few that I mentioned though, that were really great. So overall, I'm going to give this album a 7.5 out of 10. It's a really decent effort, really consistent, as I said. The long length of the whole album as a whole, like there's nothing wrong with each of the songs, but it's quite long, and for this type of music it can kind of feel like you're dragging out when you get to the end of the album. It's very long for a pop album. It's a lot more beat focused in a lot of the tracks, not all of them, a lot more synths in there, and overall just a lot less in your face. It's probably a lot more accessible for people who haven't listened to Anamanaguchi before. So yeah, it's a fun album, you know, really catchy pop, you know, and you know, I don't use pop as a derogatory term. A lot of people do these days. It's, you know, it's not. It's just a genre of music, a type of music even, not really a genre. If you enjoyed it, let me know. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know. Join me next time for when I review Daft Punk's Random Access Memories in the next few days sometime. And yeah, I will see you then. Goodbye.